Alright guys, back on Discus 101. Our next topic is going to be about discus collection when you're going to a pet store or buying it from a breeder. And a little bit about, I guess, quarantine. Um, but where do you buy these discus from? Do you buy them from a local pet store? Do you buy them from like a local breeder? Obviously there's no right or wrong, but my fish, for example, I bought from local breeders. Half of them are from Kenny's Discus. The other half is from Hans Discus. Um, both suppliers and breeders, and they're really well known to having great quality fish and healthy fish. And I actually have two from the local pet store here, and just I think I bought them. Yeah, I bought them from a local pet store. So obviously, there's no right or wrong in terms of picking where you're buying the fish from, but the difference is you're gonna see the colors and I guess more selection choices if you buy them from a breeder, because you can actually pick different ones, because local pet stores will only tend to carry certain ones. But as a beginner, since you're going to start off, you know, buying these fish, and you're basically going to be spending, quite quite a lot of money on these fish anyways, I would recommend buying from a local breeder, just because one, you'll know the fish will come in arrive healthy and and good, and you'll have more selection or choice in terms of patterns and species. So I definitely recommend that for everyone that's kind of starting with the discus. Um, but when you go to buy these discus, so what do you look for, or what are you picking out? Um, first is the shape of the discus. Obviously, you want a circle discus, and not like some deformed discus. So I mean that's where they got the name from, right? Just a circle, a disc. Um, so make sure you get that. The eyes, make sure there's no chipping in the eyes, where you'll see like the eyes aren't perfectly formed. The eye is proportionate to the body. It's not too big, not too small. Um, and a couple other things, that are kind of obvious in terms of just in general fishing. You don't want a fish that's hiding in the corner with clamped fins, not eating. Just the color is really dull. So that kind of stuff is just kind of just general stuff. Um, but one thing about if you're buying juvenile discus, I actually have like 4 or 5 of them here. Not all of them will have the true color. So for example, a lot of these will look very similar, but when they're an adult, they'll look completely different. That's when they actually will, grow their pattern and whatnot. So that's another thing you gotta be careful about is when you buy them from a local pet store. When you're buying juveniles, they'll maybe say you're buying a for example a blue diamond, but you can't really tell because or actually blue diamonds you can tell because it's just a solid blue, but something else. Um, and you can't really tell the pattern because it's a juvenile, right? You don't know, so it's kind of like you gotta trust the person, right? So that's why I kind of recommend going with a breeder too, because you know that they'll give you the correct selection of fish or breed the fish that you have, because they mass breed these guys. Um, so that's the one thing you gotta be careful about when you're picking fish from a local pet store. The other thing is peppering. It's kind of common in the pigeon strand. So if you see like black dots basically on the fish, that's kind of normal. But what's not normal is when you have like 80 or 60% of the fish's body is covered with peppering. Yeah, that's pretty bad. You don't want to pick that fish. One, it's just going to mask the color of the fish. It's just not going to look pretty. You won't see their color, stand out. It'll just be basically covered in just black spots. So that's no good. You don't want that. Um, let's say another thing about buying fish. When you buy them smaller, obviously they're gonna be cheaper, but um, they'll tend. It's a little bit harder to keep. To be honest, they won't have the immune system that's built up from like having an adult sized fish, um, and I guess there's some benefits. I mean, they'll tend to eat a lot better because they're smaller. They won't be as picky in terms of food. So just kind of know what you're getting into. Like if you get like kind of a medium size, you know that they're healthy. You know they've grown to that big because they actually you know were eating healthily and whatnot. Another thing, kind of in the same topic, is quarantine. Um, if you're buying, if you're keeping just discus, you know, or even if you're keeping other fish, just kind of be smart about it. If you already established your discus in there and you want to add, for some neon tetras in there. Neon tetras are like $2 a piece. Your discus are like 40, $50 plus, right, a piece. Make sure you quarantine, your neon tetras. You don't want to throw them in there and suddenly your discus will have diseases and whatnot. You start getting sick and possibly die, from a $2 fish. So just be smart about it. Be careful. It's just good to invest in a smaller tank if possible. Like for me, example, I didn't have room for a tank, so I just used like a cooler instead, or just some sort of like 5 gallon bucket, or even like a small, like a little breeder separator tank in the tank itself that I tend to use, and it's been really successful. And this is an example here, but this little fish on there, there's nothing wrong with him. It's just he's smaller than the other guys, and he gets tend to be picked on from the other guys. So he just doesn't get enough food. I'm just putting him in here so he can get plenty of food and plenty of nutrients, um, and whatnot. So he's actually just a healthy fish. I'm just putting him in there so he can actually eat a lot more and a lot better than the other fish because they keep taking all of his food. So, anyways, yeah, just be smart about that kind of stuff. And also when you're um, quarantining the fish, check for any signs of diseases or not. Oh, one thing to note for discus, they'll be very careful and like in in terms of like looking for signs of sickness initially. They have clamp fins. If they don't eat very well, if they get skinny, obvious signs of like internal parasites or some sort of parasite, or even stress. So just be really careful in terms of that.